Your clients are happy. Your revenue is stable. On paper, you've built exactly what you wanted. So, why does opening your laptop feel like the absolute last thing you want to do? It's the loneliest trap in entrepreneurship, feeling completely restless inside a successful business. But the problem isn't burnout, and it isn't your strategy. It's a dream problem. You've built a business that's perfect for the person you used to be. We are identifying the 5 silent signs your business goals have outgrown you and how to change without losing everything you've worked for. Let's get started. Welcome to the Midlife Business Academy. I'm Lori Lyons, marketing strategist, business coach, and accidental techie. After years of running a successful website design agency, I'm now building the business of my dreams and helping other midlife entrepreneurs do the same. From strategy to marketing to mindset, we covered what really matters when you're growing a business that fits your life. Let's get started. I'm Lori Lyons, and welcome to the Midlife Business Academy. Today's episode is for you if you've worked hard, built something real, and still find yourself wondering why it doesn't feel the way you thought it would. If you've hit goals that you felt like wins and felt mostly relieved, if you're successful on paper and if you're successful on paper and restless in practice, then this one's for you. I've been working my whole life. I got my first job at 16, and before that, I was babysitting. So the working really started and honestly never stopped. I paid my own way through college, or at least I paid the out-of-state tuition in college. And of course, then it was a lot less than it is now. But it wasn't because I had to. It was because earning it mattered to me. And if I wanted to go where I wanted to go, I had to pay the out-of-state tuition. So I wasn't waiting for something to appear. I was building a path. And that became the pattern. Build something, work hard, show up, be dependable, answer the call, sometimes literally from a beach chair with the ocean in front of me and a client in my ear. And I was proud of that because, hey, that's what we were told we would have to do, right? That's what we were taught that success required. Hustle culture had a grip on us. The idea that if you weren't grinding, you weren't serious, that the laptop on vacation was a flex, not a red flag, that being busy meant you were building something, that always being available meant you were committed. I bought into it. We all bought into it because it came wrapped in language that sounded like ambition. And for a while, it worked. I built a real business, clients who trusted me, revenue that reflected the work, a reputation I worked hard for and I earned. But it doesn't have to be like that. And I've learned this the hard way. At some point, opening my laptop began to feel like the last thing I wanted to do. And it wasn't something that was dramatic that came over me all of a sudden. I didn't have a breakdown. There was no single moment of like, wow, this is what it is. It was just something inside of me that kept getting harder to explain away. I didn't want to do things. I thought, I'm just tired. I need a real vacation. I need a new offer. I needed a new program. Oh my gosh, does that sound familiar? But rest didn't fix it. New offers didn't fix it. A new lead magnet didn't fix it because it wasn't a strategy problem. It was a dream problem. Because here's the midlife trap that nobody talks about. Here's what most people assume the problem is when they've hit this wall. And we all hit it at some point or another. You think you need a new strategy, a new offer, a new rebrand, maybe a new coach, maybe a mastermind. So you go looking for the thing that will make the business feel exciting again, that new, fresh something. And sometimes it works for a little while. But for a lot of us, and I guess if you're listening to this, you're probably one of them, the problem isn't the strategy. The problem is something quieter and honestly, a little harder to admit. You already know what you want. You've known for a while. You just haven't wanted to say it out loud yet because what you want now is different from what you wanted when you started. And that feels pretty dangerous. It feels like a whole new territory. More revenue came for you, but so did less freedom. The team got bigger, and so did the responsibility. More clients showed up, and somewhere along the way, enjoying the work went away. So you got more of what you asked for and realized it wasn't quite what you meant. You weren't specific with what you asked for. I had a moment like that recently when uh, I had something like that recently. I've been a part of a mastermind for many years. I loved this group of people. I grew close to them. I got to know them. They are brilliant. They are smart. They're genuinely committed to building their businesses. And along the way, I realized everyone was moving towards something that I really didn't want to do. Everyone there wanted to move towards seven figures. That was the destination. That was the benchmark. They were working on CEO problems and CEO issues. That's the thing that we're all supposed to want, right? I didn't want that. I'm at a stage in my life where I just thought, this really isn't me. Not because seven figures is wrong, not because scaling is wrong, and not because they were wrong, but because it wasn't me anymore. I wasn't behind it. I wasn't failing. I wasn't out of place exactly. I was just headed somewhere different. And once I admitted to that to myself, I couldn't unadmit it. So I left the group very begrudgingly on my side. I really didn't want to, but I just felt like I wasn't able to contribute like I felt like I should. I didn't want to contribute. I wanted to sit there and soak in and take in what little I could, but that wasn't fair to the group. So I left. And you know what? There were warning signs. There are five warning signs that tell you that your dream has changed. So let's talk about what those actually look like in real life because they don't show up in dramatic realizations. A lightning bolt doesn't come hit you from the sky. It shows up as patterns. It's a series of small moments that individually you can explain away, but together they show you the story. See if any of these sound familiar to you. Sign number one. It keeps bringing back the old, here's your sign. Sign number one, you keep hitting goals that don't excite you. We've all been through you got to set goals, you got to set goals, you got to set goals. And we're a very goal driven society. We're a very goal driven as business owners. So you set the goal, you do the work, you hit the number, and instead of celebrating it, you just feel like relieved that that goal is met and it's over. And now you can stop holding your breath and move on to the next one. But relief isn't the same as fulfillment. And if that's the feeling you keep landing on when you achieve something, that's worth paying attention to. Sign number two, you secretly envy people with simpler businesses. You envy those people that can go on vacation. There were at times where I envied my 9 to 5 husband who would walk away when the job was over and that was it. That he was done for the night. He didn't think about it over the weekends unless he had some special project working on. But for the most part, on vacation, he was on vacation. I've never had that, not until recently, and I'm planning on doing it soon. So I secretly envied the people with simpler businesses. I didn't envy their bigger business. I didn't envy their more successful business. I envied the simpler business. I saw someone who worked 3 days a week. They service a handful of clients. They take long lunches. They weren't taking their laptop on business cruises like I was. And it was almost like an envious, like, I wish I had that. And finally, I realized that I can. I can have that. Sign number 3, you spend more time maintaining the business than enjoying it. Because there's a difference between building something and managing something. And at some point, a lot of us cross that line without realizing it. The business stopped being the thing that we were creating and became the thing that we were just barely keeping alive. And that's not growth, that's maintenance. And maintenance alone is exhausting and, quite frankly, boring. Sign number 4. Someday is doing a lot of heavy lifting in your vocabulary. Someday I'll travel more. Someday I'll write the book. Someday I'll slow down and work fewer days. Someday I'll take the trip. Someday I'll be more creative. Someday I'll post more videos. Someday blah, 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 blah. Someday I'll spend more time doing the things that actually fill me up. That's the one that got to me. Someday is a beautiful word. It's also a very effective way of not making a decision. If someday has been on your list for more than a couple years, it's not a plan, it's a symptom. Sign number 5, you feel successful and restless at the same time. And this is one of the hardest ones to talk about because I don't want you to think you're feeling ungrateful. I don't want you to feel ungrateful for the business that you have. Like you don't have the right to be unsatisfied when things are going well. But success and satisfaction are not the same thing. You can have one without the other. And if you've been walking around with this low hum, this feeling of restlessness that you can't quite explain, that's not ingratitude. That's information that your body is trying to give you that something needs to change. So do any of those signs sound familiar? Because if they do, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not broken and your business isn't broken. You're just ready for a different conversation than the one you've been having with yourself. And that conversation starts with understanding why we resist having it at all. And if one of those signs hit home for you, do me a quick favor and hit the subscribe button right below this video and ring the bell while you're at it to be notified of the new weekly episodes. This episode is actually part of a brand new series where I'm talking about breaking down exactly how to change out of these traps and build a business that actually gives you your life back. If you subscribe now, you won't miss the next 2 parts. Now, if you're seeing those signs in your own life, you're probably wondering why you haven't just changed things already. Let's talk about the real reason we resist making these shifts. Why do we keep showing up to a dream that stopped fitting? Like a coat we've outgrown, but we can't bring ourselves to donate. But it's my favorite one. I love the color, blah, 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 blah. It hasn't fit in years, but I don't want to give it away. There's a few reasons for this. And I want to name them honestly because I have felt every single one of them. The first one is sunk cost. I've spent years building this. I can't walk away from that now. All that time, all that money, all that energy. If I change direction, what was it all for? Look at all the money I've spent on coaching. Look at all the money I've spent on my websites. Look at all the money I've spent, on events and conferences and speaking and all the things that we've done. But here's the thing about the sunk cost. The time is spent whether you change it or not. The question was never, what did I already invest? The question is, what do I build with what I have now? The second one is identity. For a lot of us, especially those who've been building and hustling and producing since we were teenagers, the business isn't just what we do. It's who we are. Who am I without this? And when the dream shifts, it can feel like a threat to your sense of self. Like if you stop being that person, who are you? I'll tell you who you are. You're someone who built something real, and now you're someone who gets to decide what comes next. The third is guilt. What will people think? Will I disappoint someone? What about the clients who depend on me, the team I've built, the people who've watched me preach a certain vision? And underneath all that, often the quietest and most persistent guilt of all. What about the version of me who sacrificed so much to get here? Doesn't she deserve to see this through? Because this is where I want to stop for a second, because this one's personal for me. I worked from the time I was 16. I paid my own. I've worked from, as I said, I've worked from the time I was 16. I've paid my own way. I've built businesses from the ground up. I wore the hustle like it was a virtue because we were told that it was. And I took that further than most, like my overachieving self demands. I took client calls after having a C-section for the birth of my son. 2 hours after he was born, I was on the phone with a client. Hours after major surgery, hours after bringing a human being into the world, I was on the phone with a client. And at the time, I thought that was what commitment looked like. I thought that's what it meant to be serious about your business. I had bought so completely into the idea that being available, being productive, being on was the measure of my dedication and the measure of how much money I was going to make, that not even the birth of my son stopped me. And I'm not telling you that story to impress you because it's really kind of silly. I'm telling you because I want you to understand how deep that conditioning ran. And if it ran that deep in me, I know I'm not the only one. That woman, the one on the phone after a C-section, the one with the laptop on the beach, the one who never stopped, she was doing exactly what she believed she needed to do. She was driven and she was building something real. But here's what I know now that I didn't know then. You don't owe your younger self your future. You can honor her. You can appreciate everything she built and sacrificed to get you here. You can be grateful for her, but you don't have to keep living by her rules. She did what she needed to do for that season. This is a different season, and you're allowed, fully and completely allowed, to want something different now. So, if the dream has changed, or maybe you're just now starting to admit that it has, the next question most people ask is, all right, so what's next? And I want to offer you a different question because what do I do next keeps you in strategy mode. It keeps you focused on the mechanics, the offers, the lead magnets, the marketing, the model. And we'll get there, but not yet. The question I want you to sit with is this. What do I want my business to give me now? Not 5 years ago, not when you first started out and were trying to prove something, not the answer that sounds most impressive in a mastermind, and believe me, I know those. Now, what do I want my business to give me now? Because the answer to that question looks different at this stage of life than it did at the beginning when you started your business. And that's not a problem. That's the whole point. Maybe the answer is you want more flexibility. You want more creativity, more profit with less volume, less stress and more presence, the ability to travel and actually be there when you do, not on the laptop on the beach and not halfway on your phone. You want more impact with fewer clients, more life woven into the work instead of squeezed around it. This week of this recording, I spent 2 hours one morning in my garden. Do you know the last time I did that guilt-free? Probably never. I would go run out and do something quick and then run back in because I felt like I had to be doing this or I had to be doing that. I just said, you know what? It was a beautiful morning. It wasn't hot here in Atlanta. It was gorgeous. I could do the things and not get sweaty and yucky and gross for the rest of the day. And it was fun just puttering around in my garden. And I didn't feel one bit of guilt. And that's very new for me. So there's no wrong answer here. There's only the answer that's honest for where you are right now. And like I said, that it looks different for everybody. Because when I came inside from the garden, I didn't feel guilty. I didn't feel like I should have been doing something else. I felt like it was exactly where I was supposed to be. And that's not the person who took client calls after a C-section. It's someone who finally built something that fits. And that's what I want for you. Not a bigger business, not a smaller business, the right business. The one that's built around who you actually are today and what you actually want your life to look like now. And that's what this series is about. And we're just getting started. But because I always give you an action step, I want to give you something to do with what you've just heard. Because awareness without action is just an interesting conversation. Or listen, and you need more than that. So I want you to grab your journal or your notes app or where actually you write things down. And I want you to reflect on these two questions and answer them honestly. And I don't want you to just listen to the podcast and go, yeah, I'll answer it when I get home if you're driving. Really go back and do this because this will set the tone for our next couple of episodes. Question 1. If I were building my business from scratch today, knowing everything I know now, what would I actually build? Now, that sounds impressive. Not what makes sense on paper. What would you build if you're starting fresh with everything that you've learned and zero obligation to the way things have always been done? What's the old question? If money were no object, what would you have, be, or do? If money were no object, what would you do? And question number 2, what am I still holding on to simply because I've always done it that way? The second one is the one that tends to get uncomfortable. Let it get uncomfortable. The discomfort is pointing at something that's really worth looking at and digging into. You don't have to have the answers figured out. You just have to be willing to ask the questions. So your dream doesn't have to stay frozen in time. The business that served you at 35 may not be the business that serves you at 55 or 65 or 75. And that's not failure. That's not giving up. That's not being ungrateful for what you've built. That's growth. That's wisdom. That's you finally giving yourself permission to want something that really fits your life right now. If these are questions that you need help answering, I'm here for you. Talkwithlori.com and set up a time to talk with me, and we'll talk about what it is that you actually want. Sometimes that's the hardest question to answer. So next week, we're going to talk about what happens when you decide to make a change and the fear that you're somehow throwing away everything you've worked for. Because here's what I know. Most reinventions really aren't reinventions at all. You're not starting over. You're bringing every skill, every lesson, every hard-won piece of experience, every failure with you into the next version of your business. Most of the time, you're not changing. You're simply repurposing. We'll get into all of that next week. And until then, remember, it's never too late to build the business of your dreams, even if that business has changed. Thank you for joining me on the Midlife Business Academy. If today's episode made you think, or made you feel, or made you feel seen, share it with a fellow business owner who could use it too. When you're ready for more support, you'll find the link to book your Profitable Path Blueprint call in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more insight and strategy to help you build a business that truly fits your life and one of your dreams. We'll see you next time on the Midlife Business Academy.